evening, everybody. Glad to see so many faces interested in BigchainDB and learning what we do. So I brought a few items tonight. I'm going to start going through them. First one is my passport. So that's my gateway to my centralized identity. If I lose this, I hope that the Swiss government is going to give me a new one, because they are the one who is controlling my identity, essentially. Then I have my medical health card from Germany. It's actually the one from the insurance, because today my German health insurance is the one that probably knows best my medical health record, because they're paying for all the stuff that I'm doing. I don't really know a lot about my medical health record. I don't have a lot of insights on where it is and who holds information and data about my medical state. A lot of different doctors, a lot of hospitals. Then I have another item, which is a banana that I bought before. So the banana has a sticker here. It says organic. Essentially, I need to believe that it is organic, and I don't really have a way to check from which farm this banana came. I just trust that this sticker here is authentic. Right. Then I have my phone with an app called Facebook. I already deleted the main app, but I still have the messenger. So whenever I send a message to my friends, this is stored on a database that is managed by Facebook. And then I have the last one. That's actually my favorite. So I deregistered from Switzerland to come over here. And then I received this. So this is a certificate of residence. It's actually a physical document that is kept in a vault of the Swiss government, and it was transferred to me via post mail because I deregistered, so I need to have it. Now, by now you might wonder, what does the passport, the banana, the certificate, and my medical health card and my app have to do with each other? Well, it's quite simple, and you might guess it. These are all areas where we are hoping or are saying to other people that blockchain will have a huge impact and significantly improve the situation compared to what it is today. Taking the passport, decentralized identity, a digital identity that I can access from everywhere, and I don't need to rely on a state. Well, for Switzerland, this might be okay. I trust my country. There's people from other countries who have less faith in their governments. The medical health record. Blockchain could enable us to give us control over our health data, monetize it, know where it is, decide who accesses it and who doesn't access it. Supply chain use cases. Blockchain can help us to trace back where this banana actually came from, and as a consumer give me access to the information and track back in which farm this banana was produced. I'll skip the phone, that's a pretty obvious one. The certificate here, it's still astonishing that this is done on paper. That's actually something we could easily digitize, put on a blockchain, and transfer to the wallet of the user who owns this certificate. So if blockchain can have this huge impact, why isn't it happening? Why aren't we seeing that? Why don't we have decentralized identity today? Why don't we have medical health records based on blockchain? Why is it taking so long? So many people have talked about it, so many people have written about it, but it's actually not happening yet in real life. And that's the topic I want to talk about tonight. So we from BigchainDB have a product that exists, and we're building applications every day. So we're confronted with the day-to-day challenges that come up when you try to bring a real blockchain use case into production. So the beauty of BigchainDB is that it is a general purpose technology. This means that it touches almost every vertical that you can think of, which gives us a pretty good overview of the market, because there are so many different industries interacting with us. So I want to actually give you a bit of feeling on that. So we have a CRM tool that we use to track the leads of potential customers that come in. Whenever a lead comes in, we mark the industry where it is from. And I took an extract the other day to give you a feeling about that. So we have a healthcare, energy, automotive, public services, supply chain, chemicals, financial services, IoT, identity, online marketing, media, telecommunications, sports, mobility services, FMCG, software development, audit, consulting, mining, construction, hardware, tourism, pharmaceuticals, agriculture, aerospace, NGO, and travel. So what I want to say with that is we get pretty much a good picture of what people are trying to do in the blockchain space. So what are the reasons blocking this mainstream adoption? There's mainly 6 reasons that I'm going to talk about. And what is important here is, while we're talking about blockchain in general, BigchainDB is a private permission solution, so we have a bit of a bias towards permissioned use cases, not necessarily public use cases. So reason number 1, that's something we see in almost every use case, consortium setup and governance. What does that mean? So this is how we explain a typical BigchainDB supply chain use case in a very simple way. So you have a product that is manufactured somewhere, and this product moves along a supply chain, and the end consumer wants to know, where did my piece of meat come from? So you need to track the information across all these different companies. They would set up a private BigchainDB blockchain and track this information. Now what you see here is that you need the collaboration of different companies working together. So you need to get these companies to the same table and agree to the fact that they're going to create a blockchain and they're going to manage it together. So they need to set up a consortium and they need to collaborate with each other. And this is not always easy, especially if you deal with enterprises. Sometimes it might look like this. Sometimes it might look like this. Sometimes it's also happy and it works very easily. But the bottom line is, it's not that simple to set up a consortium of companies that agree to create a blockchain together and to govern it and maintain it. So to give you a bit of feeling about that, there's 2 data points that we have on consortiums that were successfully set up. The first one is Mobi, that was announced 2 months ago. So Mobi is the Mobility Open Blockchain Initiative. That's a consortium for the automotive space with 37 members. And here we were actually involved from the start. And it took around 12 months until this consortium was set up. And all these companies agreed, yes, we're going to do blockchain use cases together. And that's just the start. Now the next step is, what blockchain use cases are we going to do? That's the next discussion. So it takes a long time. The other data point that we have is Enerchain. That's a German energy consortium. So we don't have the exact figure here, but we saw the initial proof of concept was done last summer, and the announcement was done last year around summer. So it took around 9 to 10 months to set up this consortium for this energy trading use case, which had 23 members. So the bottom line of this is, if we really believe in these large blockchain use cases, it takes time to organize the collaboration among the parties who participate here. Reason number 2, we're getting closer. What we learned along the way is that every blockchain project is first and foremost frequently also a digitization project. So if we take the example of my certificate from Switzerland, if we want to put that on a blockchain, the first step we need to solve is to agree that we get rid of the piece of paper and we digitize that. And we find that in a lot of use cases. Also, when you go into supply chain use cases, you're surprised. There's still a lot of paper involved that looks like that. And I want to give you even a more tangible feeling on that from the healthcare space. So I'm from Switzerland, as I already mentioned. And Swisscom, the Swiss telecommunication company, did a study last year where they took a look at data in healthcare, and they discovered that there's 300 million of A4 sheets of paper that are being generated every year by the Swiss healthcare system. That's 820,000 sheets per day, which equals to 220 tons of paper per average small hospital, which is the weight of 7 trucks per hospital. So each small hospital has 7 trucks weight of paper. So this shows, if we believe in blockchain, we also need to believe in digitization and be willing to take the step and get rid of all the paper that we still use in a lot of processes. Next reason, even if we do have the information digitally, today, unfortunately, it's in complex legacy systems. What are these complex legacy systems? If you start working with enterprises or governments, you quickly come across these guys here, Oracle, SAP, Salesforce. These are old systems that essentially power the entire infrastructure of a lot of companies. And the challenge is that blockchains were not really built in a way to be easily integrated with ERP systems. One of the most frequent questions I get after presenting BigchainDB is, yeah, cool, great, we like the idea, so how exactly do I take BigchainDB and put it in SAP? And I say, okay, that's not so easy. There's a few tweaks you need to do. It's possible. But the challenge is these systems, they touch almost every angle of a company. So they're essentially like the engine of the company. Now the thing is, the engine is in an airplane that is continuously flying because the companies are operating. So if you want to start changing the engine of an airplane while it's flying, there's a lot of challenges that you're going to experience. It's possible, but it's not that easy. Reason number 4, and that is closely connected to digitization, is regulation, regulation, regulation. So the devil lies in the details. There's one use case that with BigchainDB we pitch very frequently, which is the vehicle lifecycle management. We've done a great proof of concept with the government on that. And essentially here we had 4 parties interacting with each other: a car dealer, registration authority, a police, car owner. They're all sharing data with each other. Now if you want to bring that in production, for example in Germany, the challenge you're going to face is that there's a law that prescribes that some documentation of a car still needs to be maintained physically, which is a blocker for adoption. So these small details in regulation sometimes make it difficult to bring large use cases in production. Another example is peer-to-peer energy trading. A lot of people have talked about using blockchain as the underlying ledger for peer-to-peer energy trading, but there is a challenge in Germany, which is peer-to-peer trading itself is actually quite challenging under German law, because you cannot really send electricity from a microgrid on your rooftop to another neighbor unless you use the grid somehow, because otherwise you need a special license because you're a utility producing electricity. So we talk a lot about using blockchain for energy trading, but there's actually some regulation preventing that from actually happening. Reason number 5 is the immaturity of the technology. So we're still quite early in the blockchain space. I personally believe this is the least important solution, the least important reason and challenge. But if we look at typical use cases, when we explain BigchainDB use cases and we show this is how a user is represented in BigchainDB, the next question that comes up is like, oh my God, what do I have to do with this key? So I need a key management, and every employee needs a wallet to store his key. That's a problem. So key and identity management is quite challenging, but there are companies that are working on solutions that we're using. The next aspect is encryption and privacy. This comes up in a lot of conversations. So a blockchain is designed to replicate all the data and show it to all participants. So you need a mechanism for privacy to prevent people from seeing information they're not supposed to see. And the last aspect, scalability. A lot has been talked about scalability challenges of blockchain. That's a pretty obvious challenge that we are still facing, but there's a lot of people who are working. So when people ask me about the technical challenges, I usually say a lot of smart engineers are working on it. They're going to figure out a solution for that. The last reason, reason number 6, that's a bit more high level and generic. I usually say blockchain makes a lot of sense in a world we might move into, and that takes a bit of time. What do I mean with that? So the future we might move towards is a future where users really care about their data. Today we talk a lot about getting back control over our data, and Facebook is bad. But if we go out on the street and ask the average person that doesn't deal a lot with technology, a lot of people don't really care about what is happening with their data. It's our circle here who are dealing with blockchain and thinking this is unfair. So as long as not more people care about having control over their data, blockchain is not that much required, right? Of course, it makes sense for a lot of other use cases, but for the specific use case of getting back control of your data, the first condition that must be met is that people care about having control over their data. Another example is if we move into a future where you really have autonomous devices, autonomous cars, autonomous grids that are transacting with each other, then it makes a lot of sense to have an underlying ledger that enables machine-to-machine interactions, machine-to-machine transactions, and so on. As long as we don't have autonomous devices every day here, blockchain loses a little bit of power for those use cases. And the last aspect is what we see with technologies, also with the internet, is adoption takes usually at least one generation. Our generation grew up with the internet and we're using it. So until people get really used to blockchain, it might still take a little bit more time. So to sum it up, where do we stand today? 2009 was what is Bitcoin? 2012 was Bitcoin is bad. 2014 was Bitcoin is bad, but maybe blockchain is good. And 2018 is blockchain is complex, and we need to study the high-value use cases. And that's the task that we, as a collective consortium here, have. So now I've triggered like a bit a depressed mood on we're never going to make it to adoption. So to conclude the talk and to continue that, I also want to push up the mood again, because there are ways how we can increase adoption. So how can we do that? There's 3 tricks. I call them tricks. Trick number 1, work with startups. So while we are busy in thinking of the challenges on how to adopt it and so on, one example is overnight, this happened. And while some people might laugh, CryptoKitties, a ridiculous use case, it's actually the first real large-scale viral blockchain use case that has gone into production within a very short time and is showing people, okay, this technology, you can really use it for cool stuff that we actually didn't think about. To show that, you can't see it properly, but here in December, when CryptoKitties started taking off, the transaction volume of CryptoKitties that was transacted went from almost 0 to 7 million within 3 days. So this is an example of a viral use case that no one was seeing coming. The other important aspect to understand about blockchain startups is that they have a lot of funding. So I looked up the numbers. In 2017 and 18, in total, between 11 and 12 billion were raised in ICOs. And there's an estimation that there's around 2,500 to 3,000 startups. So if you divide this amount by the amount of startups, on average, every startup has 4 or 5 million of funding that they can use. So that's a lot of money, and there's a lot of smart people working in that space. So a lot of new disruptive ideas can come. And it's important to seize that and to work together with these companies and give these startups a chance to succeed. So we at BigchainDB are actually feeling that. There's a lot of startups that are approaching us, that are building things, that have raised some funds, and now they want to get started. And I want to give you a bit of a feeling around that as well. Startups building on BigchainDB, they come from all different verticals. For example, finance, there's decentralized exchanges, monetization use cases, and also centralized exchanges. E-commerce, there's a startup building decentralized shopping profile. There's a startup building an access control for online marketing information. Healthcare, there are 2 startups building health data monetization apps and fitness data monetization apps. In gaming, we have a representative today from RS Tech, who is building a use case in the gaming area that you will learn about later. Identity, there are 2 startups building on BigchainDB in the identity area. IoT, there are again 2 startups building IoT use cases on BigchainDB. Then there are different startups working with integrating hardware in BigchainDB to create this immutable audit trail of events in a supply chain. There are a lot of different startups in the media space. For example, one is building a decentralized LinkedIn, and then there's a few others. So the main message here is, if adoption is slow with enterprises and governments, let's work with startups because they're moving fast and they have the pressure to deliver today and also the interest and the passion to do it. We get startups coming in and out every day, and we love the passion that is in there. How am I doing on time? Okay. Trick number 2, work with pioneers. So while we do say that in government and in enterprises, adoption might be a little slow and a little tricky, there are still some pioneers out there that have taken the first step and say, yes, we believe in blockchain, we want to do it. I'll give you a few examples where we have gathered some experiences. On the enterprise side, for example, the Toyota Research Institute. So the TRI was actually the one that founded Mobi, the large consortium we saw before. So they alone took on the task to unite the automotive industry to create blockchain use cases. That's a really impressive achievement that they actually managed to bring the whole industry together. And it's important to be close to these types of companies. Another example is Enexis. That's one of the largest Dutch utilities. So their research department is investing a lot of time in analyzing decentralized and autonomous machine economy, and has done a lot of pilots on blockchain to really paint a vision of the future of what such a decentralized machine economy might look like. Innogy, we're working closely with Innogy as well, who is an investor in BigchainDB as well. So Innogy has been investing a lot of time in uniting the Berlin blockchain community. They have acted as the consolidator among all these startups that are in Berlin. Deutsche Telekom is also a customer of ours. They have also set up a project in Berlin where they're uniting all the startups and building a blockchain platform, and they have taken this first step. And finally, Bosch, we don't have a working relationship with Bosch. We've had a few conversations, and we've also realized that they're doing a lot of research in the IoT plus blockchain space, and have done really fundamental, high-quality research. If we move to the government side, amazingly, also governments have a lot of pioneers that are believing in blockchain, and are seeing that this technology can add a lot of value for them. One example is the government of the Netherlands. Almost every department in the Dutch government has a few blockchain pilots going on, be it in the identity space, in the land registry space, in the vehicle registration space, a lot of different areas. Another example is the government of Belgium. They are doing, similarly to the Dutch government, collaborating closely on, for example, education diploma use cases or other use cases. Then there is the Republic of Estonia, with whom we have a close personal relationship. And I guess you might all know about how they are approaching the topic of blockchain. They are very disruptive. They have an e-residency program. They are being very welcoming to blockchain startups and encouraging them to move their company to Estonia and be friendly in terms of regulation for them. And then there is this logo, you might not know it, it's from an Indian state government of Andhra Pradesh. They have done a series of proof of concept in a lot of different areas, also land registries, e-voting, vehicle lifecycle management. And they have also taken this first leap in saying, we believe in digitization, we believe in blockchain. And finally, the government of Dubai, it's also very well known. They are strategically betting on blockchain and are doing a lot of projects. And we have a project with them as well. So the last trick, and that's very generic and counts for all of you, I call it educate the world. So we've worked with startups, we work with the pioneers of the governments and the enterprises. What else can we do? We can go outside and talk about blockchain, tell people about it, educate them, tell them about the benefits, show them examples so that they can relate to it, and show them what benefits this technology can have. And that's a task for all of you here. Go out and spread the message on what we can do and achieve with blockchain and how we can have more live, real production use cases. Thank you.
I don't know if the other speakers will go into this, but could you say a little bit more what BigchainDB actually does for startups?
So we have one startup that is working on BigchainDB that is presenting afterwards. But generically, so does your question point into the technical side, or what services we have, or how we help startups, or?
A little bit of all. Like,
okay. So there's different ways how we support startups. It depends, like some of them, they have raised funds and they really want to build a platform. So we have like a consulting team that can actually work with them, so they become our customers. And there's different levels here. Sometimes we start helping them with a simple proof of concept, which is a sprint that we build together with them. Sometimes we do an architectural review. And then based on how this first collaboration goes, we evaluate of also maybe becoming a more strategic partner and helping them on other topic as well, on incubating and promoting them, maybe participating in their token sale if they're doing a token sale, so just becoming a more strategic technical partner. If they're a very early stage startup, we're always open to give them feedback on what they're doing. I actually invest a lot of time in talking to early stage startups, telling them, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? If they are a bit further along, we're also trying to make a community contribution. Some of them actually, they say, we don't need consultants helping us, we're building it ourselves. So they engage with our core development team on exchanging bugs that they're finding, and we try to promote them and say, hey, here there's a startup that is building a cool use case on BigchainDB, check it out. And we just try to have an open line with them as much as we can.
Thanks.
I would like to ask how to combine the blockchain with the art licensing. Do you have some idea about that? Because I saw a startup at the corner, they're doing some licensing. And yes?
So auto licensing, or what do you mean?
Art licensing.
Art licensing.
Right.
Okay. So that's an interesting question because that's actually how our company started out. So maybe to give you a feeling on that and a little background, BigchainDB started out as a company called Ascribe. And Ascribe was not building on BigchainDB, but on the Bitcoin blockchain. And what Ascribe was doing is helping creators to monetize their digital art. So if I'm a photographer, I essentially can hash my picture, write it into the Bitcoin blockchain, and then I get a proof that this image really belongs to me. And then I can set a few parameters, issue new assets that represent ownership in this picture or temporary ownership or whatever type of licensing you can think of, and I can transfer them to other users who are buying this picture from me. Now with the Bitcoin blockchain, this is actually very difficult to do. And that's why our founders set out to find alternatives, and then they didn't find any, so they created BigchainDB. And BigchainDB was originally supposed to be used for Ascribe, but it got so much traction that it became a separate project. So with BigchainDB, it was actually designed to track, transfer, and license digital art. So in BigchainDB, you can create a new asset which represents the ownership in your picture or your movie and so on. And you can create sub-assets that you can transfer to others that represent ownership, partial ownership in that digital art, or temporary ownership, or whatever.
Right. Because I think the artists get their income piece by piece, depending on the quantity and the price for each product. But
Yes.
when the product is sold, it's difficult to track what is going on actually. So maybe this technology can solve this problem.
Potentially. So actually with the problem of tracking what is happening with the art is less a blockchain problem. That's more a machine learning problem. So if you're talking about tracking who is using your picture, that's something that you do outside of blockchain. And actually Ascribe had built another service that was called Where on the Net, where you could upload your picture and then it was crawling the web and telling you on which pages this picture is appearing. So you can then go to these pages, check in the blockchain, have I transferred the usage right to this person to put the picture on this web page, yes or no. If they don't, then you can sue them. If they have, then you're fine.
Okay.
But tracking the usage is a problem that is outside of the blockchain.
So if it's in the daily life, I mean, like this bottle, I use some art on it, then the manufacturer, they produce actually 1,000, but the contract is 100. How can I use blockchain to track how many they actually sell?
That's a good question. So one way you can start potentially, and we have a collaboration with a company that is issuing copy-proof QR codes. So if you have art on this bottle that is supposed to be unique, the first thing you can do is you can put a unique QR code on it and mark this bottle in the blockchain and write to it, this unique identifier on this bottle belongs to this bottle with this art. So you have somewhere encoded that this is the art that belongs to this bottle. And then you have this claim in the blockchain. Now how you find others that have copied the art on the bottle and put it on other bottles, that's again a problem that you solve outside of the blockchain. But the blockchain gives you the proof that this bottle has this unique art on it. And then of course you need to find a mechanism to find the people who have these fake bottles.
Okay, thank you.
So you demonstrated this beautiful banana. Do you have any example of verification of certification towards organic stuff in the supply chain?
So we are working on one right now. Essentially, it's not that easy. The approach we take again is the unique identifier. For a banana, essentially, you would probably not track the individual banana, but you would track the batch of bananas that is shipped. So you would again tag at the level of the batch. You have a copy-proof unique identifier, which in our case would probably be a copy-proof QR code that we have. And then today, probably, you still need to rely on one third party that certifies that this is a biological plant. So what this third party would do is they would scan this batch and add their stamp, their information, saying this is biological banana. Then the banana batch gets shipped to the shipping company, who then ships it to the warehouse. Along the way, everybody scans it and adds the information, banana received, banana transported. So in the end, the customer in the shop can scan a QR code and he can see this banana belonged to batch XYZ that was certified by Max Havelaar or whatever when they uploaded it, or something like that.
Every banana needs an RF chip.
Maybe every banana, maybe every box of bananas. That's something that is then to be discussed in the individual implementation that you do.